Thank you guys for joining our webinar today on 5 essentials that all great service portals have in common. And we wanted a chance to do this topic as sort of a non-technical approach to how to improve your user experience by addressing some of the best practice issues that we see as a common issue in many of the organizations that we try to help in terms of putting together a functional and effective service portal. And we also want to show you something that you guys can start doing today to improve your service portal right off the bat, as well as trying to come up with a better strategy for what is going to make your portal more useful for your organization, but also for the users that you have using it as well. I want to go ahead and just let you guys know, if you have any questions during the webinar, there is a panel right on the GoToWebinar console for questions. Feel free to throw those up throughout the webinar. We will be answering those all at the end. And there is also a handout that is available for download right now. I highly recommend downloading that handout, as it's we have a lot of information here, and there's a fair amount of information that you can get directly from that handout. If for any reason you guys are not able to stay for the whole webinar, or if you are unable to get the handout, or you have someone else that might be interested in this, we are going to be emailing out both the recording of this webinar and the handout in a few days after the webinar is over. So take a look in your emails for that. If for any reason you don't get that and you want to make sure that you're included, or if maybe it went into your junk folder and you just wanted to contact us and let us know that, let us know, and we'll be happy to send you the information as soon as possible. So right now I'm going to go ahead and just introduce our company a little bit. For some of you that may not already be familiar with Cerna Solutions, we specialize in ServiceNow consulting, specifically in implementations, integrations, and unique product offerings. We also have a very strong focus right now in service portal consulting, as well as test management services and solutions and remote administrative services. To give you a little bit of a background as to what we do with our service portal consulting, give me 1 second there. We have over 7 years of experience building custom employee portals. Now, that's not all service portal specifically, because that is a newer product for ServiceNow. But we've been working on portals in ServiceNow for quite a long time. In fact, the presenter that we have today has actually worked on over 60 portals alone, just under his own belt, not including the rest of the team that we work with right now. We offer expert solutions, including single or multiple service desks, incident deflection with knowledge base, optimized mobile portals, asset-based self-service, as well as a focus on how to transform your service management for all of the users involved, not just the top level and the low level, but everyone included, as that's really the most effective way to use your service portal. And one of our offerings right now is a free service portal workshop. If you have any questions on how to get that, if you want us to work with you on how to get started, we'd be happy to help. You can contact us at the information at the end of the webinar, or you can visit us at cernasolutions.com. So right now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. His name is Jeff Pierce. He is our Portal Practice Manager with Cerna Solutions. As I mentioned before, he has over 7 years of experience in working with portals for ServiceNow and platform experience. He is an expert in user experience design, and he is an enthusiast of the ukulele and and scuba diving. So if you ever see anything island themed coming out of Cerna Solutions, it's a good chance that Jeff was behind creating that content. Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Tim.
Very good.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, depending on where in the world you are. Good morning here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where I am. Thanks for joining today. It looks like we've got a good turnout, and excited to share this information with you. So, actually, Tim, do I have control there? Okay, it looks like I do.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No problem. Just trying to move to the next slide here. There we go. Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, the title was 5 Essential Things All Great Service Portals Have in Common. So first we'll look at exactly what is a great service portal, what UX characteristics contribute to that greatness, which includes Cerna's 5 C's of great UX. And then at the end, we'll go through a little thought exercise of how do you know your users. So what is a great service portal? A portal, or really any kind of business application, one, fulfills a business goal, has a comprehensible user interface, and gives your users a positive emotional experience. So what does that mean for you? What's the ROI on that? One, it's going to save your service desk money, it's going to increase productivity, and what we're talking about today is creating confidence and support. So that last one, that's the most important one, because if you do those first two, you fulfill a business goal, you have an interface that's comprehensible, but you don't have a positive user experience, then nobody's going to use your tool. It's not going to get adopted. So that's really what we want to focus on, and that's the trend that we see across software and applications everywhere. Is, we're no longer content with things not working well or feeling clunky and redundant and difficult to use. There's a high demand for a better user experience, and it's a great revolution, if you want to call it a revolution. Get a little nerdy sometimes. All right, so what UX characteristics contribute to greatness? Our 5 C's are consistency, conversation, culture, concision, and clairvoyance. So the idea behind each of these is that we're trying to elicit a feeling out of our users for each of these. So we want them, after using our product, to say, I know what to expect when I'm using it. I can understand this. This was built for me. I can quickly find what I'm looking for, and I like how intuitive this is. If you nail all 5 of these, you've got a great user experience, and you've got something that users are going to want to come back to and use over and over. So as I work through each of these 5 topics, keep in mind that these are universal topics. It isn't just ServiceNow, and it isn't just Service Portal. But I'm going to be looking at these topics through the lens of Service Portal. So we're going to be looking at specific examples of how you can implement each of these in Service Portal. But keep your mind open and thinking big as we talk about this, because really, no matter what you do in ServiceNow, these 5 topics come into play. Even if you're building a form or a list or anything on the back end, outside the portal, user experience is just as important. So the examples that we're going to be looking at, they're not fully defined comprehensive solutions. They're really just thought experiments. So we're going to be just like taking a look at a bunch of ideas or things to get you thinking in Service Portal. So none of these things that I share are really intended to be final solutions that you can go implement today. Some of them might be, but really, hopefully, they're just going to get you thinking about how you can do better for your users. All right, let's jump into consistency. So consistency is style and location of elements. And consistency in that develops intuition when users use your product. So controls that look similar are expected to function in the same way. We can use a user's knowledge of previous experiences, meaning like experiences with popular websites that they use outside of ServiceNow or just in their home life. We can use their experience with those tools and leverage that to create familiarity. And also the idea of consistent distinction. Sometimes things get too consistent. So we'll take a look at examples of each of these here. So breadcrumbs. This is a great way where consistency improves user experience immensely. How many times have you been in a website and you've clicked 3 or 4 or maybe even more levels deep and you have no idea where you are now, and your only option is just to go back to the home page and then try to find that trail back to what you're looking for. So breadcrumbs are a great way to let the user know where they are at all times in the site. And in the Service Portal, we have a nice widget for breadcrumbs, but they don't put it on every page. they stop short of putting it on the knowledge article page or when you're actually looking at a catalog item. So that's one thing that you can do is go ahead and drag that widget onto those pages as well. Because when I'm looking at a knowledge article, it would be nice to know how I got there, what category that I'm in. So that's I think that's a pretty important thing that you need to do on every page of your portal is to have those breadcrumbs. Let them know how to get back through the trail they were looking at. Labels. This is a very common source of confusion. When things are labeled inconsistently, a user can never remember how to get to what they were looking at or how to find what they're trying to accomplish. The example we're looking at now shows that in the out-of-box template, tickets or incidents are actually referred to 3 different ways. We have requests up in the menu, but when I get to the incident page, it's called My Incidents. And then when I'm looking at the incident, down in the SLA section, it says Tickets. So this could be rather confusing, because when a user is going to come back now to look at their incident and all they can find is a request link, that can be rather confusing. So you want to think of a term that's going to be able to encompass all of this that you can reuse throughout your site. Actually with labels, it's a good thing to develop for yourself a glossary, even if it's just for your own reference. Here's what we call everything, just so we can make sure we call it consistent, use these labels consistently. It's not a bad idea to publish that glossary to your users as a knowledge article even. Give them a legend for all the terms you use in your portal. And just a quick note before I move on here. It's going to seem like I'm picking on the portal template a lot, but I love the ServiceNow Service Portal template. I think it's great, but just the thing to keep in mind is it wasn't necessarily designed to just plug and play exactly as is, right? You're going to need to take away things that aren't relevant. You're going to need to change things for your own unique needs. But then there are some places where it's just, some changes are needed, but not that many. So as we go through and I pick it apart, just keep that in mind. Is that I'm not really complaining about the out-of-box template. I think it's great. Just this is more of a thought experiment to help you make it your own. All right, continuing with the labels. Think about the way that you label your links. An example with the template is on the home page, you'll find this Get Help link. If I click on that Get Help link, it takes me to a page where I'm looking at the Can We Help You category in the service catalog. There's actually no similarities between the thing that I clicked on and the page that I arrived to. And so there are many ways to make this consistent, right? I could have labeled the link Can We Help You, or I can label my category Get Help. Or the Get Help link can go right to a form, a reported incident form, something like that. So there are many ways to create that consistency, but the main thing is it's got to be consistent. When I click on that link, I should feel comfortable about where I landed. In this scenario here, if I click Get Help and I landed on Can We Help You, and there's all these different options, I might be wondering if I clicked on the right link at all. So keep that very consistent, the labels of your links. Okay, I think there must be a little delay here with changing the slides. There we go. Okay. All right, search inputs. This is something that I've seen create a lot of confusion in the past. Having search inputs located in different places and having them function in different ways. It's very important that if you are going to provide search inputs, keep them at the maximum in 2 different places. So on our home page, of course, it's front and center. That's great. Draw a user's attention to it. It's a great place to start. But then on all the subpages, it should always be in the exact same spot. So we can see in the template on the knowledge base page, it takes up the full width. On the service catalog page, it's just over to the right-hand side. Now, that's not a terrible difference, but it isn't consistent. And these little inconsistencies can go a long way and cause some confusion with some users. And at least these all search the same sources, right? Whether I search from the knowledge base page or the service catalog page, I'm going to be actually searching and getting results from the same kinds of content. And that's good. Keep it that way. A mistake that I see is on one page, it's just going to search service catalog. On another page, it's just going to search knowledge base. That's too inconsistent. Your users can handle getting back multiple content types in their search results, especially if you provide them the filters that they get on the search results page. So if your search boxes look similar, they should do the same things. All right, so let's talk about consistent distinction, because sometimes too much consistency is a bad thing. You might have too much ambiguity on the page. So consistent distinction comes in the form of visual feedback or creating distinction on the page via layout and style. In this example here, as I'm browsing the knowledge base categories and I click on a category, I get some feedback that I clicked on a category, right? My breadcrumbs will change. I'll get the name of the new category up in the breadcrumbs, and then the articles in the list will change. But that's it. And if I'm not paying attention to the breadcrumbs, and my list of categories is so long that I don't see the articles change right away, I get no other feedback that I actually clicked on something. So just doing little things like bolding the category name or underlining it, or highlighting it in some way, so that now I know I'm looking in the operating systems category that I just clicked on. Little things like that go a long way in creating a good, confident user experience. And do them consistently. If I'm gonna if I'm going to click on something and my page doesn't change, it's just going to change content on the page, I need to consistently get feedback that I did click on something and I interacted with the site. So another way of creating consistent distinction is by using style. So you may have noticed this big gray blur on the home page of the template. That's just what I call it. Really, it's 6 different lists. They might be useful lists, but any user coming to your site seeing a big block of lists like that, no, it's just going to be a big gray blur with blue links in it, and nobody's going to have a good experience looking through all these lists trying to tell what they are or what might be useful to them. So you can see in the example below, I just took some color and I filled in the backgrounds and I added column headers to those lists. So suddenly this big gray blur of blue links becomes a distinctive content area where I can see now the left-hand side is status and news, in the middle is my stuff, and on the right are community questions. So it's much easier to look at now. My eyes and my mind can break up this content right away. And of course, I've linked the colors to, the colors of the list backgrounds correlate to the link buttons above them. So it creates some distinction here between this. So now I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you just go coloring the backgrounds like this, because this, design-wise, this might be a little bit ugly, but there are different ways of doing this. But the idea is, in the example above, it's too consistent, right? We have lists that are styled exactly the same way, though they're presenting different kinds of information. So as you go through your portal experience, you would expect that different kinds of information might be distinctive, and and that should be consistent throughout your site. All right, so that's it for consistency. Let's talk about conversation. So when your portal is conversational, your user is going to have the feeling that I can understand this. I know what's being asked of me. I'm not being presented with just short, cold labels. I can actually interact with warm language in a recognizable vernacular. It's engaging language. And if nothing else, even if all of your labels and everything are consistent and clearly defined and they're accurate, that may be perfectly usable. But having a conversational experience just improves the experience overall. It takes you from, okay, yeah, I can use this in order to find things, to, hey, I actually had a really pleasant experience. Maybe this even made me laugh a little bit, with a little dose of humor here and there. So how do we get conversational? Some examples of those are, look in the search inputs here. When I see just the word search in a search input, what does that mean? What am I searching? That's vague and empty. But just with a little more color to it, make that more conversational. Search for services and answers. That's much more descriptive. It's helpful. Now I know what to expect when I'm going to search. It's it's a very easy thing that you can do to help make those search inputs a little more comfy feeling. Confirmations. Think about the confirmations that you give your users throughout the site. Here we're looking at the confirmations that you get after you place a service catalog request and an incident. In the case of the request, I get a message that says created, REQ, blah, 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 track using requests in the header. That's a little choppy and techy. I feel like a computer is spitting that out to me. After submitting an incident, I get another message that says, thank you, we'll take a look and see what we can do to help. That's better, but then I get another one, created incident 10145, blah, blah, blah. It's still a little too automated feeling, plus I have two messages. Why do I have that? So make this consolidated and make it more conversational. We received your ticket, and then the ticket number in parentheses, and are working on a resolution. You can track the status of it at any time by visiting My Tickets. And of course, ideally, My Tickets would be a link to the My Tickets page. But make this human. Don't let the user feel like they're talking to a robot, or like they slid a note under the door and they get an automated response back. Make it feel like somebody actually responded to what they did. And then also let them know what's next. Don't ever leave them hanging. Let them know that you care. Okay. Form labels. This is a place where I see big opportunity for conversation. So I'm going to go through a few examples on a typical submit an incident form. The first one, caller, right? We need to know who this ticket is for. Don't just call it caller or open for, but ask who is experiencing the issue. That's going to let the user filling this out really understand what this field is for more. It might be me, it might be somebody else. It doesn't just have to be me. Now I know that, oh, I can open up a ticket for my buddy if they're having an issue. Think about a form, go through it yourself and imagine you were being asked these questions by a human. You're standing there at a desk and somebody just says to you, caller. Boy, that'd feel a little rude actually, but what if they asked me a polite question? Who has experienced the issue? Now I like this experience more. The next one, description. Again, just a little cold and short. You can ask what seems to be the issue, and then in the help text below the field, are you getting any error messages? What browser or operating system are you using? Right now you're eliciting more information from the user. If you just left it a description, they might say, my thing is broken, or something is down, I can't do this, and they give you no other information. But get conversational with your user, they're going to get conversational back with you. You're going to get more information out of them, which is what you need in order to route this incident more properly. You want to get those error messages. You want to know what operating system they're using and get as much information as you can about this issue. help the helper use you. Okay, something like impact. Rather than asking the user to actually classify the incident, which is not their job, right? It should be the person who's working the task to properly classify the impact. So instead, ask them, who does this affect as far as you know, or something to this effect. And then your options are just me, several of us, or everyone. So these can correspond to impacts. But now the user doesn't have to choose some ITIL classification answer. Now they get to actually respond in a way that they know. I can answer this question, but if you ask me the one on top, I'm probably always going to choose high, or maybe I want to choose low when it's actually high. So that's really important to make that much more human. Same thing with urgency. How urgent is your ticket? Well, everybody's going to pick high, right? But instead, if you ask, how is your productivity affected? It's not. Maybe this is just something that needs to be fixed eventually, or somewhat, or I can't do my job. Now this really qualifies and quantifies the urgency. So, stay away from these cold labels and answers on your form. Get conversational, and just like I said, imagine you're standing there at the desk and somebody is asking you these questions from across the desk. How would you like them to ask those questions to you? All right, another simple way of getting conversational is just right here on the home page. Rather than how can we help you, good morning, Jeff. Or if it's afternoon, good afternoon. Right away I feel like somebody's talking to me and it's not just a computer. You can even give them a hint of where to start on the page. You can make your placeholder text in the search input. Start here by asking a question. Even give it a little flash, when the user visits the page and draw their attention to it. So there are many ways, especially when you get into more advanced UX techniques, there are many ways that you can make a page interactive and make it feel like the page is talking to you, even without text. Okay, the navigation, that's another place. You can replace these short, vague links with more conversational, engaging language. Get descriptive and friendly. So order something becomes request services from IT. Get help, ask HR a question. Knowledge base becomes browse FAQs and tutorials. Or community is collaborate with your peers. So all these things just give a better expectation for the user. They understand more, and they aren't expected to know what you mean just by these short 1 or 2 word terms. It creates a much more engaging and understandable experience. All right, let's move on to cultural. So what do we mean by cultural? This was built for me, not just this is engaging me and using language that is warm and descriptive, but this actually understands who I am. And this wasn't built for some IT nerd who works in ServiceNow all day long. This was actually built for me. I work in accounting, or I work on the shop floor or something, or I'm out in the field. The people who built this understands me, and they had me in mind. So this comes into play when we choose the styles of navigation. And certainly when we choose the terms and jargon that we use throughout the portal. And then, of course, it's very important to know that the information you're presenting is relevant to the way users from different departments, fields, and roles make their decisions. So, of course, this is going to be very particular to your unique organization. But here's just a few quick examples of how you can improve cultural relevancy. So one is navigation, right? This scenario here is you're experiencing high call volume from a low-tech audience. So your main goal is to stop people from calling or emailing your service desk. Adopt the portal because you can submit submit an HR case or an incident through there. You can ask a question there, and it's going to bring the cost of your service desks down so much. So in that scenario, your users may respond better to a much smaller number and more focused options. So like maybe you don't need to browse an entire catalog and ask them to search. If really your main metric is to lower the emails and phone calls to your service desk, just give them 2 links. Here's our HR forms, or you can ask us a question. And then here's the status of your cases that you submitted right here. So this turns out to be a very simple portal. I have 3 options. Either go to a form that if I'm looking for it, update my personal info, request PTO, or ask a question. And then there's my status. So this becomes a very simple interface for users who would be looking for that. Add more to this page, and it might be difficult for them to adopt. They might get confused or overburdened. Feel like this isn't the site for them. This is for somebody else who needs to do more complex things. I'm just going to call. So it's very important. But now, are your users comfortable with searching for information? Are they familiar with your offerings? Then maybe it's appropriate to get them to search for what they're looking for and give them more options for browsing a catalog. So it's understand under what circumstances are your users going to be consuming your services, and decide on the most appropriate approach for that. So that's, when we talk about culture, the culture is how am I feeling, what are my values, what am I doing the rest of my day when I might have to stop and jump into this portal to do something. All those come into play, and the way you offer your navigation options and content layout is very relevant to that. So of course, terminology is probably a pretty obvious one here, right? Do your users know or even care about ITIL terms? They have any idea what an incident, a request, or a case is, or what the knowledge base might mean, or a service catalog? These things may just be totally Greek to your users. You give them these terms, and it's like, okay, this wasn't made for me. I'm just going to call. So instead, use words that they are going to understand. Tickets, help articles, information, policies and FAQs, requests, services, equipment, forms. So those are all words that are much more familiar to them and elicit actual meaning in their heads that makes them feel like, okay, this is, I understand what this is saying, so this is a tool that was built for me. It's not just for the IT geeks who want to browse everything. Okay, providing appropriate info. Providing too much information may not be appropriate. Might just be inviting confusion. So just a few examples here. When we look at the out-of-box ticket detail page, or if I'm looking at an incident here in the portal, I'm told the incident number, the state, the priority. I have SLA information down in the gray box. That might be fine, but maybe that's still too much for some users. Maybe your user really just wants to know what the comments are going back and forth between the person working their ticket or not. Maybe they don't need to see priority, because if they see priority moderate and they disagree with that, now you're going to get a message that says, why is my incident just a moderate priority? I'm angry. This should be high. So think about the information that you're sharing. Make sure that it's relevant and it's going to be understood by your users. So don't just assume that everybody is going to understand ITIL or that they're going to understand what your service desk understands. I don't like to use the word dumbing down, because it isn't dumbing down, because there's some very smart people who may understand these things, but they just don't care, right? It's more about a focused, targeted experience. Letting, all of this is about creating confidence and support. make me confident in you as a service desk that you understand me, that you understand what I'm going through in my day-to-day job, and you can help me along. Don't give me all this information I don't care about. Yeah, so always think, is there a friendlier way of presenting these details? If if you feel it is necessary, maybe there's a different way of wording it, or a lot of different ways. All right, so here are some tips for understanding the culture of your organization. Now this is getting really nerdy. This is taken from Geert Hofstede's 6 Dimensions of Organizational Culture. But if you're wondering, like, okay, well, what is the culture of, that I need to be paying attention to? So these are just, very high-level dimensions of culture, just to get you thinking about your organization in a more comprehensive manner. So there's the power distance. To what extent do members understand the distribution of power in your organization? Femininity versus masculinity, and this has nothing to do with gender or sex. This is really just kind of the emotional roles that people play out, or the way that they like to interact with software. Long-term versus short-term orientation. How what this gets at is are all your timelines that you work with very short and aggressive? Are you a very fast-paced organization, or do you take longer? Is it more slow and relaxed? Collectivism versus individualism, the degree to which individuals are integrated into groups. Do people really operate as departments, or do you have a lot of solo workers who are kind of doing their own thing? Uncertainty avoidance, which is the degree of tolerance for ambiguity. One thing that comes into play here is the use of icons. Some organizations, they really get icons. Maybe you have a pretty well-defined style guide for your organization, and you have these familiar icons that are used throughout other things in your org. And you can just display an icon, and it doesn't even have to be accompanied by text. Other organizations, they don't want to see icons at all. There's just, what does that icon mean? It seems totally arbitrary that you picked this image to go along with this text. So that can actually play a really big role in deciding how to design your site. And then indulgence versus restraint. This is, I like to call this the millennialism factor. The extent to which the org suppresses gratification. Like, am I the type of person who, like, I want bells and whistles. I want confetti to fly in the air when I submit an incident. Or am I, maybe a little more less emotional about my experience? So that's that. And I call that the millennial factor, just because our younger audiences tend to gravitate towards a more gratifying experience. We like things to be. I say we, like I'm part of that. I'm almost 40 years old, so I don't know. Maybe I'm still part of that younger group. Anyway, yeah. So are you dealing with a culture that that likes humor and and you want to make a big deal about making submissions, and maybe you gamify the knowledge base and things like that. So these are just 6 things to consider when you think about what is the culture of your organization. All right, enough time on that. Or if those 6 dimensions of culture seemed a little lofty, you could just simply ask your users, what do you value in a support tool? Ask them, why would you call or email the service desk rather than use a self-service tool? What websites do you use on a regular basis? What do you like about them? What would you like to see in a self-service tool? This is the easiest way to get to understand what the culture of your org is. And it's amazing how many people actually haven't asked their users. They go and build a portal, and they never once asked their users about it. Okay, Concision, we got two more, so let's move through these quickly. Concision, I can quickly find what I'm looking for. So in Concision, we focus on critical use cases. We use less text. We use a lot, white space efficiently, and we have clear navigation without redundancy. So Concision is about making a more focused user experience, removing the noise from the page. I'll go back to this example on the home page. There are 6 lists here on the home page. That's information overload. Too much. Your users will lose interest before they ever read through all of these. If a piece of content is not most useful to most users, then get it off the front page. Maybe it doesn't even need to be in your portal at all. So that's list fatigue. And we have text and field fatigue. Take the out-of-box report an issue form. There's this big block of blue text at the beginning. If something is wrong, if I've got something that needs to be fixed and I'm a frustrated user, I'm not going to read that text. And then I get down to the 2 fields, description and additional information. Why do I have 2 of those? Why not just one field? Your incident form could be so simple. Report an issue to IT. What seems to be the issue? And then you have some help text underneath it to help the user give as thoughtful of a response as they can. So don't put a lot of text and fields in front of the user if it's not necessary. Always start with a blank page, and things need to be critically justified to add them to the page. Everything. That's a hard rule. All right, consolidation. There might be a lot of functions and content that could be consolidated in one place. So in this example here, I've consolidated the knowledge base and report an issue into one experience. So if my portal was just about reading knowledge and in reporting issues, maybe all I need is one search box. And I draw the user's attention to it. Need help? Start here. And then in the search input, what app, service, or equipment do you need help with? The user starts typing, I type distribution list. And I get some knowledge articles related to distribution lists. And then I have a link at the bottom of that section that says, can't find what you're looking for, open a ticket. So right here, in a very consolidated way, I got the user to look through knowledge, and I made it very easy to find the link to open up a ticket. So now I don't need 2 separate links. I don't need to push them down the knowledge base path or down the create an incident path. I can include that all in one, and this became a much more intuitive experience for the user. You may find a lot of areas where you can consolidate content and functions in the portal, because that's really the grand vision of the portal, is to consolidate. Even when you got different service desks, you might have HR, IT, facilities, finance. You may have all these different service desks who want a portal. Well, guess what? You can consolidate them all into one experience rather than having 4 or 5 different portals. Of course, this takes a lot more creativity and a lot more effort, but it's well worth the effort. All right, menu redundancy. If you have a good landing page, do you really need a drop-down menu? And what I mean by this is, if you look up in the header and you see those menu items, knowledge and service catalog, in the out-of-box template, these will just take you right to the knowledge and service catalog landing pages. That's great. That's a good idea. A lot of people want those to be drop-down menus. No, when I hover over service catalog, I want to see all the categories in the catalog. Well, it's just redundant, because why not just go to the service catalog page? You're going to get a better overview. You actually may get more higher quality information or experience on that page. Plus, it just takes more time to develop. So think about redundancy in your menus. Always just have one link to get to places, don't repeat information if it's not necessary. This next slide, list redundancy. In the portal template, we actually have 3 different incident lists. One, when I click on requests, in the header menu, I see a list of my incidents, and then I click View All Requests. Now I get another list of my incidents. Then I click View All, and yet there's a third. So there's 3 different kinds of incident lists here. That's too many, in my opinion. Just have one incident list. Make it easy to get to, and make it easy to navigate, and then that's it. This can be confusing. I mean, even as a developer, it's hard to keep track of these 3 different these 3 different lists, and they all show slightly different information too. So it's just, you know, totally redundant, in my opinion. Okay, clairvoyance. So clairvoyance, this is intuition in this site. I like how intuitive this site is. It predicts my need. It personalizes the content. It helps deflect incidents with relevant knowledge suggestions. So let's take a look at these examples. So easy personalized access. So put the stuff that the user will probably be looking for right up front. So determine what 80% of users are going to be looking for and make that the focus. And right there, you're going to have most of your users feeling like, wow, this site gives me exactly what I'm looking for. You know, that other 20%, I mean, don't forget about them entirely, but in essence, forget about them. It's just 20%. You know, start with the 80%. You know, worry about the 20% later. Chances are that your users will be looking for their open tickets, wanting to open a ticket, and their assets if you're tracking their assets through ServiceNow. So put that stuff right on the home page for them. And then there's all kinds of things that you can do with the, you know, the user's assets. You can recommend knowledge, articles, services, etc. Okay, so current events. Make this site feel live and up to date, and like, you know, let the user feel like the portal is anticipating their needs. So, you know, if you've got password management integrated into ServiceNow, let the user know if their password is due for a change in 6 days or whatever. If there's been an update to their ticket since they last visited the portal, give them a message about that. Say, hey, I came to check on the status of things, or maybe to submit a new incident, but then I get notified, oh, there's been an update. Great, maybe that just saved me a bunch of work, and it really felt like this site is my friend. And of course, you know, there's outages and maintenance. That's you know, that seems pretty pretty fundamental to a lot of people, but you'd be surprised, a lot of people still do not publish news and alerts like this on their portal. So current events is a way to make it feel very fresh and relevant. And of course, KB suggestions. So suggest KB articles when you're submitting an incident. So like if I'm typing a short description or description of my incident, or I choose a category, right there we have some pieces of data that we can go on to suggest some knowledge articles. And provide the top read or top searched articles on your home page, especially if you can boil it down to department. Like, these are the most popular articles in your department. Of course, this data is maybe a little more complex to generate, but it's well worth it. Anticipate questions. So if you took a field out the form, user might be looking for it. I actually took this example from the High instance on their report and issue form. So they said, what happened to category? Because they used to have a category field, right? So, well, we're testing new routing logic. Doesn't require you to select a category. That's great. They anticipated that I was going to wonder where that went. So little things like that create a very intuitive experience. It makes me feel like it really knows who I am. Okay, well, we got 10 minutes left. I want to save some time for questions, but we have just a couple more slides to go through. So how do you know your users? One of the best ways to do is create user personas. Walk in your user's shoes. So how do you do that? You create these persona sheets. You grab a person who you're serving, and you describe them. create a picture of them. So this is Anna. She's a 38-year-old senior manager. She has over 20 direct reports. She's with the company for 4 years. She publishes reports, writes a lot of emails, attends a lot of meetings. Her comfort level with technology, she's a longtime user of apps and software. She's familiar with the company's technology. She submits incidents and tracks their status, approves employee requests, and she works 40 to 50 hours a week in the office on her laptop. She approves requests over her lunch breaks, submits incidents when under pressure to meet a deadline. So now we have a good picture of somebody who's using our portal, and we can better understand what they might be feeling when they're consuming these services. Or take Chuck, for example. Chuck is a 24-year-old sales rep. He works on a team with 5 other reps. He's with the company for 3 months. He does sales calls, visits client sites, publishes contracts and sales materials, etc., etc. You know, so when you build these pictures and actually include a picture of somebody, you know, and print these out and put them on your wall or whatever. Keep these people in mind when you're designing a form, when you're designing navigation, and put yourself in their shoes when you are testing these things out. Which brings us to the next idea of stories and use cases. What's the difference? Why do we need both? So I start with a blank page. Ask yourself, what needs does the end user have? So these become your stories, right? I need to order services. I need to get something fixed. I need to learn how to do this myself, etc. Then define specific examples that represent 80% of each use case. So now you enter that user persona mode. Like, okay, Chuck needs to upgrade his mobile phone. Chuck wants to know the status of his request. Anna needs to report a bug with a reporting tool. And so right there, like that use case becomes more important, right? Because Anna needs to report a bug with a reporting tool. When is she reporting that bug? When she's trying to create a report. When is she trying to create a report? When she's got a deadline to do so. So now that adds a whole lot of context to this experience, right? So you're going to be thinking about how to design these things differently when you go through this exercise. So the former are stories. I need to order services. I need to get something fixed. The latter are use cases, where Chuck actually needs to know the status of his request. So we use the stories for developing and estimating development and stuff like that. And then we use the use cases for designing and testing. So they're both very useful, and it's great to do both of them when you are going through your design activities. Okay, well, that was a lot of content, and I hope that I was able to get you thinking about what a good user experience is and some specific examples of how it can be applied to our service portals. We'd like to open up the floor to some questions now. Tim, do we have any questions to field?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, one of the first questions we have is and just as a reminder to everyone, if you do have questions and maybe didn't think to put them in during, or you know, now is really the best chance to get our questions in. So if you can see that right on the GoToWebinar panel, there should be a section for questions. You can just pull that down and throw us your questions now, and we'll definitely be answering those. One of the questions we have was how do you measure statistical evidence of the fact that your user experience is actually working on your service portal?
Good question. So in Service Portal, we have usage statistics, or I think the module is called Usage Overview, where you can go there and you can see some reports on what people are actually clicking on. Well, actually, let me back up. There's two ways. One is just measuring your call and email volume compared to how many people are submitting requests through your portal, because that's going to probably be your most important metric, right? Your calls and emails go down, your submissions through the portal go up. But how do I know that people are actually having a good experience in the portal? Take a look at your usage. See what people are clicking on. And it's a good idea to actually invest in enhancing those usage statistics too, so that you can actually see how long people were looking at different things. Like if you can tell that half of your users come to your home page and they sit there for a minute before clicking on something, well, they're probably confused by your home page. Or if they come to your incident form page and they take 3 minutes reporting an issue, or you can tell that like many of them, you know, say for example, I had 500 visits to the report an issue page this week, but I actually only got 20 incidents through the portal. Now I know that that page is not working well. So you want to see, you want to see a lot of visits to your portal, but less bouncing around within your portal, less time on each page. So that's going to be indicative that users are finding what they need relatively quickly and then accomplishing their task. Yeah, so really invest some time into understanding your usage statistics and even like getting a developer to help enhance those for you.
Okay, great. One that I'll answer real quickly, we had a question about if this content will be available after the webinar. Yes, we will be emailing everyone who registered for the event, both the recording and the handout slides for this presentation, so you will be receiving those. If for some reason you don't get that email in the next couple of days, you can always check on cernasolutions.com in the resources tab. We do have a whole section where we post our webinars and all the content related there. That's also a good place for you guys to go and look at some of our previous webinars as well. Looks like we had a question about, it says, could you please provide some ideas on pagination?
Okay, yeah. Pagination, my favorite way to paginate is via lazy load, meaning no pagination. Scrolling is one of the easiest things that we can do on the web. We've learned to do that, back when we first started using a mouse. So I have, as a designer, and in my experience, I have nothing against a long list. So those lists can become more manageable, like I said, through lazy load features, where I get you'll see lazy load, for example, in LinkedIn and Facebook, where as you scroll down the page, more content loads in automatically. That's the best experience. If you're going to make me click on little tiny arrows to go to the next page, just to view the next 10 results, geez, why? It'd be so much easier just to scroll down. So you'll see that a lot more with modern web experiences, where pagination is just going away because it's not useful. It's just a burden to actually make me click on something to view the next page. I mean, some situations it may be appropriate, but I think in most situations it's not. So either just print the whole list and let them scroll, or use some kind of lazy load feature.
Great. We had another question right now about, you talked about the kind of the end user experience and working with them to kind of create your end result. What is the best way to test the portal using the end users?
The best way is to actually grab some users and make sure you get different kinds of users. Users who just joined your company a month ago, a user who's been there for 10 years, different levels of experience within your org, and sit them down and ask them just to go through those use cases. Like, okay, Susie, you need to request a mobile phone upgrade. What would you do? And don't give them any more instructions. Just watch their eyes, watch their mouse as it goes around the page, and watch what their experience is. So just actually grabbing your real users and putting them in front of a tool and asking them to perform a use case is the very best way to understand that.
Okay. And now this is not a question that was asked right now, but I know this is a common question that we do normally get. What is your recommendation in terms of using the old ServiceNow CMS system? If someone is using that right now and they are thinking about going over to Portal, Service Portal, what do you think is really the most common elements that they need to consider?
Well, one is just do it. it's not going to be as hard as you think, because Service Portal is a great tool, and you can do everything you did in CMS in Service Portal, and you can build it much faster. But it's an opportunity to refine, right? Don't just port over everything exactly as is. Think of you know, how you can do it better, and see if you can do it and actually remove some of the noise as you do it. Create a more refined experience. But you know, functionally, you know, things are going to be the same, right? You're still going to be delivering the same functions and the same type of content. It's just going to be a different tool on the back end. So, you know, don't be afraid. Just do it. You're going to have to do it sooner than later, and or I mean sooner or later. So yeah, I think that's probably my best answer there. Is don't overthink it. Just do it.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much all the time that we have right now. I appreciate everyone spending the time with us. I know we went pretty much right up to the hour. We are doing this webinar series every month, so definitely check back to our website, cernasolutions.com, see what webinars we have done in the past and what webinars we have coming up. If you guys have any additional questions, I'll go ahead and leave the session going for a few more minutes that you can get those in, and we'll try to address those after the webinar is over. And otherwise, you can always contact us at info@cernasolutions.com, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk with you guys very soon. Thanks a lot for coming.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your time. I'm very happy to share with you.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Tim.